Hi everyone, it's Melissa Phillips, and today I'm here with a fun Make It Monday project for you. My focus today is going to be all about vellum. We'll be making a vellum tag and making vellum and dimensional embellishments and just using a medium that I happen to love. This is the finished product. It's a pocket mitten made from the Shape Up series mitten die. And it's filled with sequins. You could fill it with many other things though, and it's just perfect for the holiday season. So we'll get started. Okay, I went ahead and I cut two mitten patterns here for us. So I've got one cut from the vellum and I've got one cut from Sweet Blush Bitty Dot. You could use any color pattern that you feel like. This is just what I wanted to do for our project today. And before I stitch them together, I'm going to stamp very lightly in Sweet Blush ink right across the tip of the mitten using the Background Basics Inspiration stamp. By stamping on vellum, it kind of just alludes to the fact that there is another layer on the vellum and it just adds some dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp right here across the tip of this mitten. And it doesn't do too much, but it does just do enough. And I love vellum for the fact that it creates a softness, and by stamping on it, it creates that soft effect as well. Okay, the next step is just to adhere the two layers together. And I've stitched around the original. If you don't have a machine and would just rather use adhesive, that will work too. I'm going to use my sewing machine though. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of adhesive to the tip of the mitten to hold it in place so that when I use my sewing machine, everything stays where it needs to. Okay, here is our mitten all stitched together, and you notice that I didn't stitch across the top, just so we could slip some sequins inside, a note inside, a tag inside, anything you can think of. So we're going to leave the top edge open. And for my project, I'm just going to slip in some sequins. A few other ideas that you could use inside would be to die cut some paper punches, just tiny little circles, stars, snowflakes, things like that, and slip those inside. Just anything tiny enough to fall to the bottom. Glitter would be really cute inside as well, but there's what the sequins look like. And we'll move on to the next step, which will be the dimensional vellum snowflakes in the center. And I used the snowflake medley dies and just cut a bunch of snowflakes, and we're going to layer them all together, believe it or not, and put them right there on the center. But before I do that, I found that if you run them through your die cut machine using an impression plate and give them a slight texture, that they kind of curl up a bit and they kind of spring to life and you get even more dimension out of them. So I'm going to go run these through my die cut machine using my Inspiration impression plate, and I'll show you what those look like before we add glitter. Okay, I've run these snowflakes through my die cut machine using my Inspiration impression plate, and you can see that they do curl. They have a slight texture to them now and pattern, and that will help as you layer them together. It helps, you know, bring them forward and make them even more touchable. So I'm going to use mica flakes on my vellum snowflakes. Glitter will work as well, fine glitter. Mica flakes are just a little bit chunkier, and so they add more dimension, of course, and more texture, which I love for this time of year when it's snowy outside. So I use Krylon spray adhesive and then lightly shake glitter on top or mica flakes on top, and it works wonderfully well. Another option would be using Mod Podge and coating each of your surface areas with Mod Podge and then shaking on your glitter and then waiting for it to dry. That would work as well, and I believe that would give you more coverage. But I don't necessarily need every inch of these covered, and I don't want to wait for the Mod Podge to dry, so I'm just going to use spray adhesive. Okay, so I've coated my Vellum snowflakes with mica flakes, and they're so pretty. I love how they look. And then by starting with the largest snowflake and going up to the smallest, you can see how beautiful they're going to look all layered together. And I found the easiest way to do this, since it's kind of tricky to adhere anything to glitter, is to stitch them in the center just with a few stitches, and that will secure them together and keep them nice and tight. They'll last a long time that way. So I'm going to go run these through my sewing machine, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. Okay, so I've got our snowflake layers stitched together, and they're nice and secure, so we can start layering them on our mitten. But before we do that, I used the Candy Cane Christmas stamp set and coordinating die, and I'm going to first adhere the candy cane. I wanted to bring in a punch of red to our project today. And then your layered snowflake pile can just go right on top. And then I used the Holly Jolly die cut collection and vintage cream felt and just die cut some leaves. I wanted to bring in even more texture, and felt does a great job of that. So we've got some softness, and we've got the mica flakes, which add the sparkle, and we'll just put that right there. Okay, then now is the perfect time to grab your favorite, your most favorite buttons and use them. I tend to hoard the buttons that I love, but on certain projects like this, they're just too much fun to not use. And I really have been enjoying the opaque look to certain buttons. I love the softness that they bring as well, just like the Vellum. So I don't know, I've picked out a couple different ones, but for this one I think that we'll go ahead and use that with the sparkle around the edges. And I'm going to use some colored thread in the center of the button just to add some more color. Okay, so I've tied my button with some red thread. I'm just going to adhere that right there in the center. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll dress up the top of our mitten. And I used my small scallop border die, and this is Aqua Mist stripe paper. And I'm sure that there are clever minds out there who can figure out an easier way to do this, but this is how I do it. I just cut a strip, and then I lay it over the mitten where I want it. And then what I do is I flip the mitten over and I just trace right there on both sides so that I know exactly where to cut. And then I just trim that. And it's that simple. So I'm going to adhere that across the top. And next is to dress it up a little bit with some trim. And this will have to be trimmed as well. I just had a scrap laying around, so I'm going to use that across the top. I found that adhesive glue works better for trim than just about anything else because it'll secure it for quite some time. Get that centered on there. Okay, and then I'm going to flip the mitten over, trim those edges. Okay, and there you go, we're just about done. I've had a lot of requests for quite some time about my double bows, and so I thought this would be a good time to show you how I tie my double bows. They can be tied using any type of ribbon. The thinner weight the better, I have found, because it's not quite as stiff and they're going to be bulky anyway, and so if you use thin ribbon, thin weight, it's probably going to give you the look you want versus a lot of bulk. So for this I'm going to use scrunch seam binding. And let's see, we got cream, and we've got aqua, and we've got pink, and I think I like the aqua. So what I do, I start with one of the ends in my left hand. I'm just going to form a loop, pinch that first loop really tight at the center, and just tie a bow. A simple, simple bow. And I think the thing I've learned most about these is to not get yours too floppy and long. You do that and then they just kind of start flopping it all over the place, and they don't hold their shape as well. So I like to have mine fairly small and make sure the center is tight too. If you've got a tight center, you're going to be able to have a puffier, fluffier, compact little bow. I don't have my tails too long either. I don't want those in the way. So I've got one bow tied there, and then I'm going to do it another time. So I'm just tying 2 freehand bows. Okay. Just fiddle around with it till you get those loops just the right size you want. And trim your tails. Okay, so I'm just going to use my adhesive glue right there on the corner. I normally adhere these on an angle, so nothing has to be uniform at all, and that's what makes it so fun. Okay, so with my second bow, I'm going to use adhesive glue right there in the center on the back side, and then I'm going to place it crisscross across the center of that first bow. And you just kind of got to hold it in place for a little bit and fiddle around with it. That'll just take a little while to dry, but not long at all. Okay, and then I trim my tails a little bit. I don't want them too long. Whoops. Want them too long. Okay, so we got our bow. That's my process. Very scientific, I know, but I hope that you'll give it a try. You'll learn to love it. I really do love the effect. Now what we've got to do is make a little hanger for our mitten. So I'm going to use Pure Poppy Baker's Twine and tie the 2 ends together. Just to form a loop. Trim those ends a little bit so they're not too long. Okay. Adhesive glue once again on the knot. And flip your mitten over and just place it in that upper corner on the back side. So now if you want to attach it to a package, hang it somewhere, you've actually got a little hanger. Okay, and then what would a Christmas tag be without a sentiment? Gotta have a sentiment. So I used my Tiny Tags die, and then once again I used the Candy Cane Christmas stamp set, Aqua Mist ink, and Pure Poppy ink, and just stamped a tag. And I'm just going to adhere it on a diagonal to the center of our bow. And then you could use a button at the tip of that tag. I've chosen to use an adhesive pearl, and I think I'll go with a medium size. I always use a little extra adhesive on these because I've lost plenty of them by not doing so. And there you go. I think that we're done. We have completed a couple cute little mitten tags. Vellum filled with sequins, filled with lots of dimension and sparkle. Now they're just ready for you to present to someone special this Christmas. Thank you so much for stopping by. I always love trying to think of creative things for you to try at home, and hope that you'll enjoy this and make one for yourself. Thanks for stopping in.